Well, the alibi deadline extension for Idaho murder suspect Brian Kohberger has now come and gone. Kohberger had until the end of the day on Monday to submit an alibi detailing his whereabouts the night 4 University of Idaho students were murdered in their off-campus house. News Nation is waiting to confirm any details on what that alibi may have been, if he offered one. And at the same time, his defense team is claiming DNA connecting Kohberger to the murders could have been planted at the scene of the crime by one of the hundreds of members of law enforcement during the investigation. Joining us now, trial attorney and legal analyst Brian Claypool. Oh my gosh, this is really interesting development here. Is this a far-fetched play from the defense team or a smart legal strategy that any evidence was planted?
Hey, Marnie, great to be with you. It's actually both. I'm not surprised at all. In fact, when this case broke, within a week or two, I was on another network indicating that Kohberger is going to attack the crime scene, the preservation of evidence, and how badly it was mismanaged. This goes one step a little further, which is, hey, the police actually planted the DNA on the sheath that was on top of the knife. Look, it's a dangerous strategy, but look, when you're desperate, you have to resort to desperate measures.
Would you also look at the timeline of when they found that DNA? I mean, that would be something that's kept in evidence, the timing of locating that sheath versus at that point, they didn't know who the suspect was. Later, they were at his apartment searching.
Yeah, great question. That's why I've always said you should have been a trial lawyer.
Oh, that would have been fun. Maybe in my next life.
There you go. No, that's an excellent point. I was thinking of that this morning, right? How would law enforcement have been able to transfer Kohberger's DNA onto the leather sheath? Because it took many, many weeks and months before they actually retrieved his DNA. So how in the world would they have been able to put it on this sheath early on? So that's going to be the argument of the prosecution, Marnie. I mean, look, it's a dangerous strategy because you're attacking law enforcement. You're telling them that they're lying and committing fraud, Marnie. That's much different than, oh, this is a reckless crime scene. You were careless at the crime scene. I mean, Kohberger is going to argue this was a calculated effort to frame me for this murder. And that's a really dangerous tactic.
Yeah, it's a big claim, planting evidence in a case like this. The importance of having an alibi. We don't yet know where he was the night of the murders, what he has said in response. Might he say nothing? What do you expect from his defense?
Yeah, Marnie, I expect him to say nothing. And here's why. This Idaho law is arguably unconstitutional if you think about it. It requires a defendant in a murder case to give an alibi 10 days after they're arraigned. Here, the judge gave an extension up to 2 months. But look, every defendant in a murder case has a Fifth Amendment right to remain silent. This law in Idaho that's very unique is almost forcing a defendant to come forward, give us your alibi, give us the facts that support your alibi. And here he's saying no. And the big question in this case is going to be, will a judge allow this evidence before a jury? Because Kohberger, I'm not siding with Kohberger. I'm just calling it as it is. I mean, he has a right to say nothing and not speak to this issue of an alibi. How can a state law require him to now speak about his alibi? I think it conflicts with the Fifth Amendment.
Right. But won't any jury of his peers, I mean, anybody who's watching this case go, well, I mean, if you have an alibi and you had a legitimate place you were when this happened, why wouldn't you say it, right? I mean, you read between the lines as people do.
Right. But what if he's not testifying at trial? What if he pleads the fifth at trial? He doesn't, then there is no requirement that he put up an alibi. I mean, his lawyers, if he does testify in the case, he'll probably say, I was home, right? He's got the phone off. He's going to have to deal with that. He's got it on airplane mode. You've got the videotape of allegedly the white car he was driving, speeding away from the scene. But look, Marty, in cases like this, it's not uncommon for a suspect in a high-profile murder case to sit there and say nothing. Yes, in a perfect world, he gets up and says, hey, here's my alibi. I was reading a book in my apartment at the time of the murders. It's going to be hard for him to come up and say, hey, somebody can speak for him. I was hanging out with a girlfriend or boyfriend, right? Going to be hard to do that because that person's probably lying under oath then. But look, at the end of the day, he's not legally required to even speak about any of these charges against him.
Right. We'll see if he takes a stand. There's a certain amount of arrogance that has been tied to this suspect in this case. Brian Claypool, as always, a fascinating conversation. I'll leave the lawyering to you, though.
Hey, we dressed alike today, that we matched colors.
Yeah, I love it. Coordination. Hey, take care. I'll see you next time. All right, in the next hour.